You need to give it to us real.
Advocating and combating midlife weight gain. At midlife, we start to accumulate visceral fat.
It's not the kind of fat that you can just diet off.
The less sleep you got, the more weight gain you had.
This is reinforcing all of the work that they're doing or stressing the importance of. So much happening around the conversation of menopause. I mean, we're finally having the conversation, not just here today, but worldwide. It can also be a little overwhelming, a little confusing. So, here to help us start this conversation is the perfect guest today, Jennifer Zelovitzky. She's a board certified family physician and certified menopause provider. She's currently the clinical director of women's health and vitality at MedCan Toronto. And as a menopause specialist, she understands that a multifactorial approach is essential to thrive through this transition of life. Isn't that the truth? First of all, hello, hi, welcome.
Hi, Gina. I'm so excited and happy to be here. I hope I can impart some wisdom on women because it's a confusing space too. There's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and everything in between out there.
A great start would be, how do we cut through the noise and know what we need to focus on? Where do we start with all of this?
Well, we start with the foundational principles, right? So I'd love to tell you there's a quick, easy fix out there. You know, like I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but the reason that I think people are engaging in your program is because they've come to the conclusion that all of those quote unquote easy fixes don't actually do it. They don't actually work. They're not as advertised. Yeah. The truth is that it's the lifestyle principles that lead the way when it comes to weight gain and weight loss in the perimenopause transition at age 25, 35. We're at the peak of our fertility. We're at the peak of our muscle mass. We're at the peak of our metabolism, if you will. So everything's kind of humming along. And there's this decline that starts at 35. And we're not even aware that it's happening. And this is the problem. So we start to slowly lose muscle mass. We start to slowly accumulate the visceral fat, which we'll talk about and why that's not a great thing. And then that accelerates in perimenopause. The problem is most women in early perimenopause are not even aware it's happening.
Yeah.
By the time the symptoms really start, it tends to be later in perimenopause, they're now at a much more rapid trajectory of fat accumulation and muscle mass loss. They're also having disrupted sleep, lots of stress, all of the things that we know are not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. And by the time you have your final menstrual period, you've often gotten into this accelerated course of metabolic changes that then become harder and harder to undo. So it's important to understand that you have to really nail the lifestyle piece first, because once that has spiraled out of control, hormones and all of those other wonderful things are not really going to completely solve the problem for you, if at all.
Is there something hormonally, though, that all of a sudden we wake up and it feels like we're just gaining 20 pounds in a month that is going on?
Yes. So this is what I like to explain to my patients. So we lose muscle. Where does that muscle go? Well, muscle typically converts itself to fat. When we're young, we have a lot of subcutaneous fat. This is the healthy, well-functioning fat that's below our skin. It's our insulation. It helps us regulate our temperature. The problem is at midlife, we start to accumulate visceral fat, white adipose tissue, in other words. And this is the fat that forms predominantly in our midsection. And this is what I hear time and time again, because visceral fat is what gets around and in your organs, especially the abdominal organs. And the problem with this fat is it's highly dysfunctional. But that visceral fat has one thing going for it. And this is always an eye-opener for women, is it can produce a bit of estrogen. So visceral fat cells can take hormones from our adrenal glands and convert them to a weaker form of estrogen at low levels. And so at least in animal models, they've found a link between the two. Okay, so we're accumulating visceral fat because the body there's a drive to find a source of estrogen. Once the ovaries have kind of like packed up shop, and stopped being the main source of estrogen, it's fat that becomes our main source of estrogen. And fun fact, older women who are overweight have fewer hot flashes than thin women. It's a protective mechanism. Unfortunately, I think the downside far outweighs that little bit of estrogen you get.
And that type of visceral fat, and correct me if I'm wrong, is not the kind of fat that you can just diet off. That's not it. Yeah.
No, what we have to do to combat visceral fat is put on more muscle. It's restore our muscle mass, because every pound of muscle you have on your body is a little fat burning machine.
Yeah.
And so weight loss becomes not only about giving your body, the best quality nutrients, but restoring and maintaining your muscle mass. And this is something that as women, we're just not hardwired to think about. I mean, anyone who has teenage boys knows first thing they do is they go to the gym and they want to pick up the weights and they want to get stronger. And unfortunately, as women, our first thought is we better get on that treadmill.
Yes.
And run like our life depends on it, because the more we sweat and the higher our heart rate gets, the more we'll lose weight. And unfortunately, the science does not support that whatsoever.
A question that keeps coming up, how do I know? How do I know it's menopause and it's not something else? So how can you answer that for us?
So we know that menopause, the final period, happens between 45 and 55. That's actually the normal range. The average in North America is about 51.
Okay.
Globally, it's a little lower for other factors, around 48, 49. So the first thing is you say, well, how old am I? Am I in my 40s? Am I mid 40s? Am I starting to see changes in my menstrual cycles? And that can just be variance in when it happens. So are they closer together? Are they farther apart? Is it some combination? Like they're less predictable than they were. Are they heavier than they were? Because often the first sign is heavier periods. You're having these dysregulated periods. Sometimes that's the first sign of perimenopause. But if you're clearly having hot flashes, night sweats, anxiety for no apparent reason or out of proportion to what it was, your sleep is very disrupted. Women tell me they wake up at 2, 3 in the morning and they're just wide awake and they don't understand why. That's your brain sort of having an air hunger situation for estrogen, right? It's like, we need estrogen. We're not getting it. We don't know how to interpret temperature anymore.
Yeah.
We don't know how to achieve deep sleep anymore. And you're going into this state of hyper alertness. And sometimes that's accompanied by anxiety.
It's so great that we are having this conversation. How can we be proactive?
So I'm going to tell you my golden rules basically for advocating and combating midlife weight gain, and maintaining your weight. So the first one is your sleep. Believe it
I love that.
A very large scale study found that women who got less than 7 hours of sleep did gain more weight during the menopause transition than women who got at least 7 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And the less sleep you got, the more weight gain you had. So there's this, it's sometimes not always within our control, right? Sometimes that is where hormone therapy or other medical remedies come into play. But for starters, there are 2 things you could try that might help with sleep. One is magnesium.
Yes.
Now, magnesium is very important for us, especially at midlife, because you will never get a blood test that shows your magnesium level is low. So it's irrelevant anyway. And the reason is so little, less than 2% of our magnesium is carried in our bloodstream. The rest is stored in our cells, right? It's stored in our muscles and our bones. Think of the bone turnover that's happening at midlife. So our bones are sort of preferentially using up a lot of magnesium, and the muscles are last in line. So studies have shown there's a deficiency in magnesium in the muscles of women at midlife. The other thing is melatonin. we know that there's a decline in melatonin levels that occur naturally in women at midlife. So a little bit of melatonin an hour or two before bed, so to give it time to really do its job, can be very beneficial, especially in early perimenopause, for achieving that 7 hours.
I see, I thought that was more like shift workers or whatever, but this is the first time I'm hearing that actually taking melatonin can be beneficial when it comes to midlife menopause. Okay. All
Yeah. And
right.
the next thing is moving, exercising. We have to start embracing strength training.
Yeah.
So it's wrapping your mind around, I need to get stronger. Women worry sometimes about bulking up. That's a myth. It takes a lot of effort to bulk up. It takes
Yeah.
very specific rules and a strategy to bulk up. You will just get toned and stronger, I promise. But
Yes.
the number is 90 minutes a week. Now, how many of us are getting 90 minutes of something every week that's making us stronger?
Yeah.
And that seems intimidating, but I always say, do it in whatever way is going to work for you. If you do 12 minutes every day, don't even have to change your clothes. Just pick up your weights and go for it, or do squats for
Do
12
squat.
minutes, or
Yeah.
do a plank, or and start small. Don't beat yourself up. So that's number two. And then the third is, and this is your field of expertise, but it's nutrition. It's
Okay.
important to get calcium and vitamin D for your bone health. Vitamin D is almost impossible to get from anywhere but a supplement, right? So I think most of us are deficient. At MedCan, we do test everybody annually for their vitamin D levels, and it's almost always low unless someone's taking a supplement. But calcium, and this is something I learned at a conference a few weeks ago, it's better to try to get your calcium from your diet. Now, we kind of always knew that, but the reason is we need the full complement of calcium subtypes to properly feed our bones. And when you're only getting a calcium supplement that's a particular type of calcium, that's the only subtype you're going to be really exposing yourself to. And the omega fatty acids become so much more crucial to us because our fatty acid metabolism and oxidation, the way our body uses fats, changes at midlife. And so it's important to be getting that full complement of omega 3, 6s, and 9s, and much better to get it from your food than from a supplement.
Well, this is really great because, as you know, our community is working really hard to not just make healthy, nutrient-rich food choices, but to manage their stress and their sleep and to try to move their body. I love that this is coming from you because this is reinforcing all of the work that they're doing or stressing the importance of. You need to give it to us real, but the real focus is that lifestyle piece. But where do supplements come in? Obviously, you are a fan.
I'm a fan of targeted supplements. Yeah, targeted
Okay.
supplements. Yeah.
Just like the diet industry, there has been people that just they catch on, the clickbait elements. They're trying to sell this and that and whatever. What do you say about those things that we are seeing, the combinations of stuff that people are selling? Take
Yeah.
this, gonna help with menopause, with hormones, whatever.
Save your
Is that
money.
an area? What is that?
Save your money.
Save your money.
It's all it doesn't work. I've
Okay.
had women say, "Oh, I swear, when I first started taking that hormone, whatever, blah blah blah, it helped." It's either placebo effect or they're taking advantage of the fact that in perimenopause, especially early perimenopause, when women are more likely to turn to those balancing supplements, your natural hormones are fluctuating. And so you will get little surges of estrogen that will make you feel better. And while I've been taking this happy hormone stuff for a month, it must be that. Well, no, it's probably just you ovulated and you feel better. So I can tell you that with 100% certainty, there's no such thing as balancing your hormones. There's
Yes.
no such supplement that can possibly help you with that. So I recommend specific things. And I get asked for brand recommendations. And what I will say is The best I can offer is go for brands that have been on the shelf for a long, long time, because they are likely the tried and true, not a fly by night brand, because you're never going to find a supplement that has evidence behind it. Unfortunately, they're not subjected to the same rigorous testing that medications are. And yet it's so easy to go, anyone can go online and tout these fantastic benefits of what they're selling, and women are falling prey to it because it seems like it's so lovely when you never have to mention any risks.
Yeah.
You get away with a lot.
Okay. So foundational supplements is one thing. These are the kinds of things that we talk about on the Living Method.
Yeah.
Just basic foundational, and then go talk to your doctor about um, options there. Final takeaways today, as we women encounter and start to go through all this information, listen to all of our guest experts.
So my takeaways would be careful what you take as scientific fact online. Quick hack, you can always type in scientific evidence for, and then the term that you're looking at.
Okay.
Because that forces any scientific journal articles or any valid information to rise to the top of your Google search. And if the first things you're seeing are advertisements or naturopathic doctors or someone else who's talking about it, you know right away that's not something that you should explore. So that's one thing. And then it's never too late to start. Just because our muscle mass peaks at 35, I started lifting weights at 48. It's never, never, never too late. I'm getting my mother-in-law into it, and she's 76. It's never, never too late, and it's never too little.
Love it. Never too late, never too little. I'm so happy, honestly thrilled and honored that you're joining us. Dr.
The honor is mine. Thank you for having me. And I love to share real valid information with people. We have to be informed and well informed to advocate for ourselves.
Well, we have a saying around here that sharing is caring, and we love people who want to share the knowledge that they have. Dr. Jennifer Zelovitzky will be back to talk about the medical side of things, which we'll probably need 5 hours for that. But
yeah, it's going to be a long one, but buckle up. I've got lots of great information.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gina. Thanks, everyone.